Yo, what's going on, Senpai Squad? Welcome back to a brand new video. Long time no see. It feels like forever. I was sat down in this room with the... Shout out if you remember these posters. Like, goddamn, we're going back a good couple years since I had these bad boys up. But I thought, with the beginning of the AO arc, or the Vessel arc as they're branding it, I'd bring back the Boruto episode reviews. It's exciting. Hopefully they won't let me down. I'm sure they won't. All year, the entirety of 2020 pretty much, the Boruto anime has just exceeded all of my expectations. And listen, they'd have to do something incredibly, embarrassingly bad to mess up this arc now. And so, without further ado, let's jump into episode 178. Overall, it was a beautiful episode, and despite coming into it sort of having a rough idea of what to expect from last week's preview, I was still quite surprised by some scenes. I think this was a genius concept to reintroduce Ao back into the main story. Using a memorial for the 4th Great Ninja War was a perfect way to start this arc just full stop. And just so you guys are aware, by the way, this entire episode was created off just a couple pages worth of dialogue from the manga. Because for you guys who don't read the manga, this episode never actually happened. Or at least it wasn't shown to have happened anyway. Instead, Ao just briefly mentions this episode to some degree. He just mentions how, you know, Katasuke saved him and works on his prosthetics, and that he occasionally visits Konoha. That's it. That's the only dialogue they needed to make an entire episode. And to do it in a way that felt so connected and natural to me was really impressive. I didn't get the feeling when watching this episode that they were purposely extending and dragging on the arc just for the sake of it. Like, for example, the Hozuki Castle portion of the Majina Gang arc. To me, that felt extremely stretched out for the sake of making content for the arc. Now, it wasn't inherently bad, it just didn't feel 100% naturally connected to the story it was a part of. Whereas this episode did. And so we should probably talk about Ao. I know people were expecting probably some incredibly convoluted backstory explanation onto how exactly Ao survived. But I knew from the get-go that it just wouldn't be explained in this great detail in which people were asking for. I may have said this on a video a while back, but people who I speak to frequently on Twitter will know that I've been saying for quite a while now, probably come up to like a year, which is mental, that Ao survived by pure luck. See, back in Shippuden, Ao used to wear these Japanese talisman earrings, which in Buddhist religion, something Naruto is incredibly influenced by, they offer luck and protection. And if I'm not mistaken, they've protected Ao as well before in the past when his Byakugan was trying to be stolen. So, as cheap and ass-pully as it sounds, Ao just survived through pure luck. Just instead, he had to, I suppose, offer half of his body to survive. So you could maybe say it's a fair trade. Another moment I really enjoyed from this episode was seeing Ao and Mugino form a little bit of a bond, because I'm sure manga readers out there know exactly why this is so interesting to see grow. One thing I was slightly confused by, however, was Shikamaru's constant desire to know exactly what his dad thought when relaying the plan to defeat the Ten Tails onto them was. I mean, I did think it was a nice yet sad scene when Ao did tell him, but I must admit, I don't know why Shikamaru was so fixated on the answer. Now, maybe I've just got to rewatch it and it'll come back to me on a second viewing, or maybe it's just a little seed that's been planted for some foreshadowing, and it'll be interesting if that is the case to see where it does lead to, because I gotta be honest, okay, this episode did have a few Shikamaru death flags in it. That being one of them, Shikamaru talking about how maybe one day he or him and Ino will have to pass on the torch to the next generation in the same way that their fathers did. Listen, hopefully it's not a death flag, but Shikamaru did have quite a few today, and I'm not a fan of it, alright? I love Shikamaru. I do want to comment on that final scene as well, but I will be including a spoiler there. So before we go jumping into that, I do want to quickly comment on the preview for next week's, because people have been talking about Kara in it, because they're finally shown in a full colour actual episode, it seems now. Listen, Kara, they look normal, okay? I know a lot of people are mad that they look like low budget and kind of off character, but listen, this isn't how they're going to look every episode. You will get episodes where they look incredible. Just look at Ao from today's episode. He looked magnificently detailed in some shots. But in other scenes, in other episodes, yes, they may look quite tacky. But we should know this by now as anime fans. It all comes down to the individual in charge of that episode, of who's animating and who's drawing the model. Also, they won't be as detailed as the actual chapters of the manga, because one is being hand-drawn by a pen and pencil on paper in a still frame, whereas on the other hand, in the anime, they are being drawn to then be animated and move, and so they do cut like corners. For example, maybe some less details in the hair, or maybe a load of buttons off Delta's coat, for example, or maybe some tassels off Jigen's sleeves. They will be cut purely to make it easier to animate. And it's not just Boruto that does this, okay? Every single anime, if it's just an ordinary scene, they will cut corners. Obviously, you have exceptions. For example, episode 65, the Momoshiki fight, okay? They went all out, details galore then. But they're not going to do that every damn week, especially if they're just animating some conversation. But yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. Like, look, I don't think they look out of this world. Like, I'm not going to be making them a wallpaper on my phone or anything anytime soon. But they're not just going to look like that entire time. There will be episodes in this arc, I'm sure, where the Kara members will look great, okay? I mark my words. Anyway, with that Kara rant out of the way, into the slight spoiler sections, okay? If you don't read the manga, spoiler warning. The final scene with Ao catching the leaf was great. I did not expect it at all, because all throughout the episode he was so polite and caring and respectful. And by the way, can I just say, his voice actor, okay, I'm not usually into this sort of thing, it's not usually my alleyway, but can we get Ao's voice actor some sort of ASMR YouTube channel, please? Because god damn, his voice is so soothing. But I digress. The scene of him catching the leaf was really, really well done and really caught me off guard, because obviously the manga readers will know that it's foreshadowing his future fight against Team 7 and in turn then Konoha. You know, it's a foreshadowing technique that Naruto's used for, I mean, I've lost count of the amount of times they've portrayed someone as being evil or against Konoha by having them catch or crush a leaf or something. I mean, it's so overused, you could say, right now, but every time it happens, it hits. It hits, and you just look at your TV and you go, wow! So yeah, I just thought it was a great way of making him look like a bad guy without really making him look like a bad guy as well, if that makes sense. Obviously, if you pick up on the symbolism behind it, you think, hang on a minute, that looks dodgy. But on the other hand, if you're just casually watching it, you don't pick up on it, you just think, okay, that was cool. And then later on down the line, you'll go, hang on a minute, now it makes sense. But overall, if I had to rank this episode, I'm going to dig myself a grave here, okay? And I'm going to say I'm going to start giving them a rank out of 10. Usually, I don't like giving episodes ranks out of 10 because there's so many unique situations which affect it. I also want to say that I'm ranking these by Boruto's standards, okay? Because if I was to compare them to every other anime, It's just ridiculous. I don't like doing that, so I'm going to stick to what I know and compare them to Boruto's anime standards. And so I'm going to give this episode an 8 out of 10. The Vessel arc is here. Guys, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're not already to become a member of the Senpai Squad. A lot of you guys watching this right now, okay, you're not subscribed. I think it's like over 80% of you guys. Come on, click the red button. I'll be seeing you guys in another video very, very soon. And hopefully this time you will have joined the Senpai Squad. But until then, as always, peace.